Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and the ACRU Action Fund. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Live Free TV, brought to you by the American Constitutional Rights Union. I'm in a hotel right now in Kansas City, Kansas, just arrived. And when the plane landed at MCI Airport, Kansas City, popped open the phone and my text messages were blowing up. I was informed that someone that I know, someone that I've spent time with, interviewed and been interviewed by, a young man by the name of Charlie Kirk had been shot at one of his campus rallies, Utah Valley University. And not too long after, I got the sad news that Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead. It is a sad day in the United States of America when the ability to share your thoughts, perspectives, and insights, the ability to have the free speech and the freedom to exercise and express your opinions are deemed unworthy by individuals that, well, let's be honest, they're the real fascists. They're the real fascists that will go to any length by which to silence you, their quote unquote political opposition. And that is a complete violation of our constitutional rights. That's a complete violation of us being able to live free in these great United States of America. So when I think about this tragic day, a tragic day before a day that we will remember forever called 9/11, we still have so far to go in the United States of America. I would have never thought 24 years after 9/11 that we would be facing this type of violence on our streets, where a young woman sitting on a light rail train, a refugee from Ukraine, is stabbed to death multiple times by someone that was released from jail, well, just because of an activist judge that thought that that was the right thing to do. A judge who doesn't even have a law degree. In a country where a young man who pulled himself up by the bootstraps, who has ignited an incredible movement among young people, young conservatives all across the United States of America. A husband, a father, will be shot, assassinated, just because someone didn't like his thoughts and perspectives, just because someone didn't like his principles of governance, his philosophy, his ideology, which is really rooted in the ideals of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and the reason why we can live free. I find it very interesting that children at a mass in Minneapolis, Minnesota, can be gunned down by someone because they suffer from a mental condition. But yet, that person is living in a state that provides sanctuary to people that have that mental condition. I find it interesting that we have people standing up for folks that are here criminally by coming into this country illegally, but also committing crimes on top of that, heinous crimes. And we still have young women, young men, children that are the victims of the crimes that they're committing. I think if we are to truly look at what happened today to Charlie Kirk, we need to do a self assessment. Sadly, there are people out there right now on social media that are, well, celebrating, cheering. But let's just think about it if the shoe was on the other foot. What if there was a white man who stabbed a black woman on a light rail train? We know what would happen. What if there was some leftist who was out there espousing his views, his thoughts and perspectives, and he was shot? We would hear all of the rantings about gun control. We would hear all the rantings about that MAGA left, MAGA right, and things of this nature. But the real threat that we see when you go back and you think about what Joe Biden and that speech he gave, that horrific speech outside Independence Hall, it's not constitutional conservatives. It's not people that stand up and believe in our fundamental principles and values that enable us, again, to live free in the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. It's the Marxists, the leftists, the progressives, the socialists, the communists, who refuse to believe that, well, kind of like that bumper sticker that says coexist. And obviously, there were some, I don't know, 19 individuals 24 years ago that did not think we could coexist. And that same mentality still exists today. So, on this sad day, let us not forget what Charlie Kirk stood for, ever. Let us remember him. Because I would think that Charlie Kirk, now as he goes to soar with the eagles and the angels, I think he would look down upon us and say, as we said in the military, Charlie Mike, to continue on, to continue the mission, to continue what I started, to have a renewed fervor, to have a renewed energy, to make sure that the leftists do not gain triumph in this moment. We cannot allow people that think just because you don't believe as they do, that you should lose your life. That's the nature of a group called Antifa, supposedly anti-fascist, but truthfully, they're the fascists themselves. And we even had a presidential administration that worked with social media platforms to censor the free speech of Americans who said, this whole thing about locking us down and locking us in our homes, that's not right. And maybe we should question this. But obviously, to the left, you cannot question them. Obviously, to the left and also the Islamic jihadists, if you don't bow down to their religion, to their belief system, you don't deserve to live. That's what today teaches us. And that's the lesson that we should never forget. That we are dealing with people that only understand that you must be subjugated. You must be subservient to them. And how is it that anybody on the left can celebrate what happened today? They can only do so because they don't believe you have the right to exist. Furthermore, they don't want to coexist with you. 24 years ago, I was a 40-year-old young lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, on an exchange assignment with the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. On that day, September 11th, we had just finished our morning physical training, come in, taking a shower. I was there in my office getting dressed, and the phone rang. It was my counterpart up at Marine Forces Atlantic headquarters who said, "Alan, you got to get down to the Combat Operations Center. Something's happening." And I hurriedly got dressed, and also I was joined by all of my other co-workers there in the operations branch of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. And we got down to the Combat Operations Center just in time to see the second plane hit the towers there in New York City. And we knew at that moment that we had been struck. We knew at that moment that this was indeed the Pearl Harbor of our generation. And I remember my dad telling me the stories of how they gathered around radios to hear about the attack on Pearl Harbor. He was 21 years of age. The following year, he was in the United States Army. I knew that once again my nation would call upon me to go and do what I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I would bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And that I took that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, so help me God. And yes, I responded and answered the call. But here we are today, 24 years later. And the amazing thing is how quickly we've forgotten, which is why I hope that we don't forget the sacrifice of the life of Charlie Kirk as soon as that. Because in New York City, where Islamic jihadists killed thousands of Americans, and also in Washington, D.C., at the Pentagon, today, New York City is on the precipice of electing an Islamic jihadist, an anti-Semite, a Marxist, a communist as its mayor. This is what happens when we don't continue the mission. This is what happens when we forget. This is what happens when we don't remember all of the assaults, all of the attacks on our nation, and who were the ones that did it. I guess it's much the same as Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota has said, And she was the one that said her allegiance is not to the United States of America, even as a member of our Congress, but to her home country of Somalia. She said 9/11 was some people that did something. We cannot allow that to be. We cannot allow people to be in elected positions in the United States of America that would undermine our domestic security and our national security. And here we are today, on the day before 9/11, and we see a blatant threat to our domestic security. Not being able to ride freely on a light rail train in North Carolina, not being able to be out in the public space on a university campus where ideals should be shared, discourse should be had, debate should be welcomed, not receive a shot to the neck and be killed. So going forward, I want you to think about what it means to live free in these United States of America. And those veterans that are out there, I want you to remember the words of that oath that you took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's what we face today. We face the enemy within and an enemy without. And they are clearly stating who they are, what they desire, what their goals and objectives are, to prevent us from ever being able to live free, to live under their yoke, being it the Marxists or the Islamic jihadists. As I've said before, the red-green alliance. We must stand against that alliance. And we here at the American Constitutional Rights Union, well, we believe in supporting and defending that Constitution. We believe in standing against organizations like the ACLU, which is going out there and bringing lawsuits against law enforcement agencies that are doing what they're supposed to do, enforcing the law and getting criminal, illegal immigrants off of our streets. We believe that we should speak up about our national security and the threats of Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Islamic jihadism, and also narco-terrorism. But we also believe that we should protect our rights and freedoms and liberties here so that we can protect ourselves, we can protect our families against a very determined adversary that seems to believe that the only way that you can live free is if you live by their buy or by their leave. They're not looking at any means by which they think that we can express who we are and what we believe in. It's time to make a stand. There are going to be some elections that are coming up this year. Early voting will start next week in Virginia, as a matter of fact, in their gubernatorial election, the 19th of September, 2 days after Constitution Day, September the 17th, 1787. Wouldn't it be interesting that the state that gave us the writers of the Declaration of Independence and the writer of the Constitution of the United States of America decide to elect a Marxist, progressive, socialist, leftist as its governor? I would think that George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Mason, Patrick Lee, all of these incredible men would be highly disturbed with that. But that's the choice we make. I make the choice to live free. Join us at the American Constitutional Rights Union to do that. And remember Charlie Kirk, all that he stood for, all that he wanted for the future of his 2 little children and all of our children and grandchildren. Let us not grow weary in this fight. Let us continue the mission, and let us remain, now and forevermore, steadfast and loyal to this constitutional republic that we call home, these great United States of America. May God keep Charlie Kirk close to his bosom, and may God bless his family. Thank you.